Hi teachers, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jessica Tobin and I am the blogger and product creator behind Elementary Nest. Today we are going to dive into a topic that lots of teachers love to discuss, and that is mentor text. So I have written a blog post and made a YouTube video for the overall idea of using mentor text, but today we're going to get more specific in how to organize those mentor text and how to kind of keep up with which ones you've used, which ones are possible, which ones you own, and which ones you need. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about 5 points, and those 5 points are going to help outline organizing your reading and writing mentor text. The first thing we're going to do is talk about brainstorming titles to use before your lessons. The second, we're going to talk about choosing a method for how you want to organize it. Third step is going to be sorting and labeling your mentor text. Your fourth step is going to be how to keep up with it using a tracking sheet, which will be a freebie later on in the video. And then step 5 is a bonus step, but it will be how to prep each book prior to your lesson. So let's go back and we're going to talk about brainstorming titles of your mentor text. So one thing that I suggest for this one is to explore the world of Pinterest for this idea, or check out blog posts that have been written by many teacher bloggers in the blogging community. There are tons of blog posts and Pinterest suggestions for which mentor text are best to use for certain standards. Even doing a quick Google search, you can type in mentor text for opinion writing and you're going to get tons of ideas and books, and you can go through each of those. You can pick which ones that you think would be best in your classroom, which ones you may already own, which ones you think represent a good diverse background. So there's lots of things to look into when you are trying to brainstorm your list. I do have 4 blog posts that I'm going to put in the description of this YouTube video, but brainstorming a list of those for each standard. And I do have a freebie I'm going to put on the screen now that kind of outlines and shows you one way that you could collect titles, write them down, track which standards specifically they cover, so that when you're in a pickle and you're lesson planning and you need a mentor text very quickly, you can refer to that list. Step 2, we are going to talk about choosing the method for how you want to organize your mentor text. If you want your mentor text to stay by themselves, what I would suggest doing is choosing which organization route you can go. Now, a couple organization routes, I have a blog post on this and I'm going to link it in the description, but within that blog post I talk about options. If you're going to put them on your shelving unit or your shelving unit, I have a couple ways to organize those by genre. So what I would suggest, if you are simply storing, so I've got a stack here for me to talk about, and each one of these mentor texts actually cover a different reading standard. So these are not similar. They would not be together on a shelf. They would be separate. But for example, if I've got, so Reading Beauty is a compare and contrast. So what I would do, I would either have this on a shelf lined up with other compare and contrast books, or just simply with other fiction books so that I can grab them really quick. Another option, and I will suggest in the blog post, I have ways to organize them. So there are, I don't have one, but they're long, they're like the size of a ruler, and you can label them and you can say compare and contrast mentor text, and you like slide it in between the books, so it'll kind of stick off of your shelf so that you can see each standard in a row. Labeling them on a shelf, and I would keep them in order by genre, and even more specifically label them or keep them organized by reading standard. The next step is to have a completely different shelving unit for your books. So if you're going to keep your mentor text in a separate space from your, binders and your lesson plan collections, you could create like a small bookshelf that's just for your mentor text. And there's a couple options. You can do wire racks, you can do the wood bookcases, you could do the cloth bookcases, which are really popular in the primary grades. They're really cute to have your books on display. The third step that we're going to look at is labeling and sorting your books. So we've got a couple ways that you can label and sort your books when you have, for example, if you are going to go with the shelving unit option and you're chunking your books up by genre, or you're sorting them by standard, go ahead and pick which one of those options you're going to do. For example, if you are going to label your books by just the genre, you can just put a little post-it note on it that labels like the domain or the topic in general. If you want to get even more specific, you can label a book by the standard itself, which I would suggest doing. It is a little bit more difficult because you have to do a little bit of prep work prior while you're organizing. So that I would suggest deciding which way you're going to sort on your bookshelf or within your shelving unit, and going ahead and labeling each book so that you can get them on a shelf sorted and organized. Then step 4 is to go ahead and get a tracking system in order. So what you can do, I have 2 templates within this freebie that I'm offering you, and one of them is like a by week, which books am I going to be teaching that week. Those will be more once you get into your instruction, once you get into your lesson. But if you want to back it up a little bit and simply get your books organized, put all the books that you use for writing mentor text, and then there's a tag for which standard it hits. So having those that you can always keep, like maybe in your lesson plan booklet or keep on hand, would be very useful for you to always be able to refer to if you don't have a chance to organize them on a shelf. But keeping track of your standards, the one that is like the weekly instruction, there's a place for you to write the standard and write more details about each book. So that's going to be a little bit more prep work. You can either take time in the summer to get ahead, or you can do that by week. So you're going to be teaching story elements and narrative writing. So you're going to pull out that sheet and you're going to write which books you're going to use for story elements and details within the book, and then which book you're going to use for narrative writing and the details within the book. So that page is a good organizer for you to use when getting into instruction itself. And then step 5, I listed out was like a bonus because it is more prep heavy. It's going to require a little bit more work. You can either choose to do step 5 in 2 ways. You can do this all at the beginning of your year or all at the beginning of a quarter. If you're feeling ahead, feeling like you want to be organized, this is going to be for those, super organized teachers, where you can gather up all your books that you know you're going to use or that you want to use and prep those books. The other option would be to prep your books week by week, and that will probably only take your first year of doing this process, because after you do your first year, if you keep these books separate from your students' books, you can leave the post-it notes, the markups, and the annotations, you can leave them in the book for next year. So what I mean by prepping each book, so this is Island Born. This one is a great book for story elements, so I would suggest this be a story element book. And if you want, there are many options for marking up your text. There's like the little flags, they have underlining strips, and then post-its are always great. Some teachers even choose to, before they read, put one of these longer post-it notes on the inside of the book so that they can either write questions before, during, and after, have those ready, or they could write pages to specifically focus on, you know, like page 7 is a great opportunity to stop and talk about characters. So that's one option to do. Another option is to flag specific pages prior to reading. So like this one you see discusses details from the illustrations in setting. So this page actually follows along with the second page where you can talk about setting and how the pictures really enhance the understanding of the setting of the story. So marking that to go ahead and make sure you don't miss out on any opportunities to talk about story elements or whatever your specific standard is. So this is one option for standard labeling. Another option is to put a label here on the spine. There is removable tape that you can put here. I do have a link to that in the blog post. I can also link it in this description. But it's like a little tape that you'll put along the spine, and it really only works for hardback books. Because let's see if I have a, yeah, I've got a paperback here. You can tell paperbacks are a little skinnier. It's kind of hard to put something there and write on it. So I would say if you have paperback within your collection, it's going to be better to label it with a Post-it. However, if you want something for quick finding, those adding a little label on the spine would be good. So like I mentioned, there's removable tape. I've got washi tape I think would work great. I think washi tape's pretty gentle. It would peel off if you want eventually to not have stuff on your books. So that is another option for labeling. So we have discussed the 5 steps for organizing your mentor text. I'm going to put a link to the freebie and a link to the blog post in the description, but I'll also put a link to the freebie on this page here so that you can hop over if you want right now just to download that. It is an email freebie, so once you put your email in, you will immediately be sent an email in your inbox with this freebie that you can download and get started. The blog post also has links for any Amazon purchases or any suggestions for organizational materials. I appreciate you guys tuning in today to watch this week's video. I will talk to you next week with more teaching tips, and have a great teaching week, and good luck getting those mentor texts organized.